Today is going to be a Nova Drift speedrun day, but kind of, with a draft. We haven't really looked at draft on this channel yet, and how it works is you get to choose all the mods you want at the beginning of the game, and then you never get to choose any more ever again. So we're going to put together a pretty standard, like, warp strike, charged shot, burst railgun thing. With a bunch of mods here. This bit is not going to be particularly interesting, but then this will be the only mod selection for the rest of the run, and then we're going to try and get to wave 300, which is quite a long way away. And Sentry Strike, we do want 6 upgrades left. That's what we expected to see, and yeah, we're starting at, can't quite see it because that star is in the way. We start at wave 135, which is well into the territory of the game quietly suggesting you go home by filling the screen with certain death mere seconds after any particular wave spawns in, with the exception of these slow mine waves, which are always a little bit annoying. So the general plan for that, and why we've gone for this battery charged railgun rather than, say, a barrage type kind of railgun, is we're going to attempt to fill the screen with our own death first, and we're already here, so we've kind of got a little bit of advantage of, you know, hey, there's some guys turning up, we can just like put some bullets over there in the space that they're about to be in. And yeah, warp strike does a thing. Battery also is this kind of weird craft that I've still not used a whole lot. In fact, I don't think I've used it a whole lot outside of this, and we want to be here? Yeah, like that. That fires in, this is a great example, 2 different directions, and not straight, so it's a little harder to aim, and is also just like, puts a lot more bullets on the screen. But I think it might be, like, I can see me personally having a significantly more challenging time trying to get battery through the early levels of, like, not having warp strike, not having targeting, all of that. But it's also draft, so we can straight up just hopefully not die to those guys because they're also a bit of a pain. Yeah, we can just start with all of these capabilities and not have to worry about how to get here exactly. So draft things. Yeah, these snakes we want to. There's a couple of specific tricks to battery that I've figured out, actually specific to battery and railgun and warp strike. Oh hey, here's one of them. We want to sit in a corner, kind of fire like that, and get both sets of bullets onto the enemies in the middle of the screen. That's a trick we're going to use several times, which we'll probably talk again about later. This build has, yeah, you can see kind of the circle of amp shield around my craft, and so the amp shield means I do additional damage to anything within that range, but that's kind of spicy. I'd rather not be that close to things, especially these guys. These guys have a shield, and we kind of have to wait for their shield to go away before we do anything about it. The other tool we've got is Snipe, which does extra damage at long range. I'll call these guys again. Amazing. Yeah, wait for the shields to go away. Yeah, and so we've kind of got 2 main modes of fighting. There's either be a long way from things or be right next to things. And being a long way from things I like more because reaction time and coverage and that kind of stuff. And also it's just a better way of just filling a larger portion of the screen with damage, which is basically how we survive at this point. This is kind of ropey. Okay, the black hole did in fact get out of the way. That was kind of good. Yeah, there's I think a comparison to, say, Devil Daggers in space with roguelike elements, in that if we are not in control of, like, having a relatively empty screen with not all that many dudes on it, then we run the risk of being overrun. And so, I mean, especially as what is this guy? This is one of the guys that we do this thing for. Especially with this kind of speedrun battery railgun plan of, like, the principal manner of survival is making sure that nothing else is here to give me any trouble. And there are other ways of running Nova Drift as well. But for this one, we want to make sure that I am the only living thing on the screen. And so we've got to make sure we're kind of keeping the screen roughly clear. And that's also pretty speedrun. Yeah, these guys are getting pretty busy immediately. Those waves are these guys are one of the main kind of problems we'll run into. We definitely have to deal with all of them before their second mine laying phase. And the other major problems are, like, if Seraph turns up, that's just a bit of an issue, a bit slow. These worms are generally pretty okay, because we can do stuff like this pretty easily. They're not super fast as far as waves, and then these shielded guys, we just kind of hold the shot and wait till all the shields go away. But yeah, we got a bunch of extra things in the build that were not necessarily vital for this kind of railgun warp strike plan. Like, we got Warpath. I'm pretty sure Warpath is always going to be worth it in these draft games because of how many enemies there are the whole time. Yeah, 200 is always a pair of bosses, and you can figure out what the tricky bits of the run are based on when the commentary just stops. And probably there'll be faster versions of this where I don't bother talking about things at all, because that's just easier. And also, depending on whether or not I'm repeating myself, other stuff that I wanted to say about this kind of Nova Strike that I've already said in a previous instance. But yeah. Yeah, and then I think there was... Because we are still stockpiling levels. Like, all of the XP is important. We want to be out here to do this thing. Because Ataraxia is still generating combat value out of unspent levels. And then there's a couple of other things like Incendiary Strike and Blast Radius, and a couple of non-essential things that I concluded I still enjoyed over more Ataraxia stacks. Yeah, that's the provide my own crossfire trick. It's pretty good. And is also very specific to battery and railgun and warp strike, because there aren't all that many other situations where you have like two shots going in different directions that will wrap around the screen. Slow mines waves, always a bit of a bane of speedrunning Nova Drift, but that's okay. I mean, all my Warpath stacks fell off, but other than that, can we be down here doing this thing? I think for the moment we are still in control of the screen. What are these guys? Oh, these guys. I mean, it's a nice way to clear out the screen. It's not great for the frame rate. Oh, these guys again. I haven't complained about these guys in a while. Yeah, that guy was nearly onto his more problematic mine laying phase. These guys can all just kind of go away. Sure. Oh, hey, more shielded guys. I think these are called traces on account of, the traces that they fire, and they are one of the ways that... I'm just going to run up here and cut off these guys. Okay, that actually did a lot of damage, never mind. Yeah, one of the main ways that these kind of runs can go badly wrong for me is, like, traces, shielded guys, and the other Celestials that if they get into their mine-laying phase, Seraphs also, and yeah, double hammerhead waves also. Double hammerheads, double juggernauts, or whatever they're called. I can't even remember whether they're called bulwarks or juggernauts, but it's fine. We have mostly survived most of that. This particular wave, yeah, that's... These guys will run up to me and we just like shoot both of them, it's fine. They kind of get into their own execution positions. These critters are... They don't always have the best self-preservation instincts. Where am I? Can I not get blown up here? And yeah, slow hammerhead waves, that's still a thing. I don't think I've done it this run. One of the other tricks that I like for this setup is if there's exactly one small enemy left from a big wave of stuff, sometimes I'll blink onto them so I can save the big charged shot for the next wave, because that's just, in theory, a nice speedrun way of making sure that, like, yeah, the damage is being dealt as quickly as possible to the various things. You arrived, survived, it's fine, things are normal. Wave 240. So yeah, there was some chatter on the Nova Drift Discord about whether... Oh, these guys, okay. Somewhat effective. Okay. We are... Oh, we're fine. Okay, cool. Yeah, about whether wave 300 or wave 500 or wave 700 would be kind of a better goal for kind of speedruns that went past... yeah, we'll do all that, it's fine. That went past 100 levels, and I reckon... Like, I think my impression is that 500 and 700 are just going to be, like, more of the same, but even spicier. Like, this is already... let's go in here. That. This is already pretty spicy, and I'm not sure that all that many strats would change if we were going to, say, 500 over, say, 300. It would just get, like, more of this and worse. And so, yeah, we'll just smash our face into that guy so that we can keep that charge shot for the next wave. Yeah, 300 seems to be a pretty good place for speedruns from draft, because it's already pretty messy. Which, and you know, a way that's nice. These guys can all go away. Okay, was seriously concerned about spontaneously exploding there. It's probably fine. Like, one of the few defensive tools we do have is the Essence Sap, just to make sure that when we do take damage, because we always will, we'll get back to full health reasonably quickly. Oh hey, these guys. They're mostly pretty fine. And yeah. Like, I'm not sure that all that much would change between 300 and 500 and 700, other than all of this just getting worse, and then there also being fewer builds viable. Oh yeah, bosses can turn up at random times. Let's fight this now. Yeah, that worked out pretty well. Yeah, all of this just getting worse, and just being more of it, and I'm not sure that would be super interesting to watch for a speedrun, and also having fewer viable builds. Like, I think one of the things that we like a lot a moment about Nova Drift speedruns is there are still a surprising number of viable builds for the basic 100 wave speedruns, and then also like the Annihilation versus non-Annihilation versus wild stuff. And one of the concerns is, if we're thinking about, if you say speedrun to wave 700, then first of all you've got to pick one of the builds that can go to wave 700. And so that might not have quite as many options for speedrunning, because you just don't have as many options. Whereas, like, I'm not even sure that this is... cool, Seraph. I'm not even sure that this is going to be one of the best options for this particular speedrun. Can I blink again? Can we not die? but it's one that might work. Okay, so Seraph is... Oh, immediately into these guys. Cool. Okay, I've got some amount of health and shields. Yeah, this is just... Hey, let's also figure out how to use battery, because it's a craft that's there, that's also in some other speedruns. And it seems like it would work, and also draft means I can dodge the inconvenience of having to figure out how to use battery for the beginning of the game, and also puts a lot of bullets on the screen. You know, we have some amount of control over... Okay, so I mean, we're getting less and less as we go. That was a nice little Chow Yun Fat John Woo film move of standing in the middle of like 4 guys and shooting all of them. So that's a thing that I like about this plan as well. And yeah. Okay. Was mildly concerned about dying there. That guy can go away, it's fine. Yeah, and then we don't have all that many warpath stacks, which is a bit of a shame. Can we go and blink towards all of those grenades in a way that I don't particularly like? Who have we got? Warbringer and this dude. Did we actually... We did actually get Warbringer. We did kill Warbringer. We were alive for a fraction of a second after Warbringer died, so I'm gonna call that... I mean, it still says wave 300. So maybe we didn't quite get to wave 301. I guess this guy is... If Warbringer summons that guy... If the summoned guy was on screen and Warbringer was dead and the summoned guy is still here... Anyway, we'll be able to do this better when I'm not also doing commentary at the same time, but that's basically the route. We get to pick all these things ahead of time. We've got some warp strike that allows us to fire from one side to the other. We've got this battery thing which allows us to fire in 2 directions at once, which hopefully covers the screen and damage, and hopefully we can kill some bosses and not die. And yeah, Nova Drift draft stuff, wave 300, kind of.